Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast training series. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is where we're going to be looking at energy shield deflection. Energy shield deflection is a interesting power because it's just pretty much straightforward, but it puts you in a position to think about how are you going to deal with the game, and how's that figure in particular going to deal with its positioning either offensively or defensively. So let's get into it. Energy shield deflection. Modify this character's defense values by +2 against ranged combat attacks. Real simple. So you might say, well, what depth is there? Well, pure and simple, energy shield deflection makes it obvious that the figure using it is a ranged piece or needs to survive a ranged situation. Now, the main reason I add that last bit, needs to survive a ranged situation, is this. There are several more figures than I care to count which have charge and energy shield deflection, which is completely worthless once you're in melee range. But that energy shield deflection allows them to actually get into melee range. Now, not all those figures are able to give that big one-shot KO, Goku over 9,000 power bomb hit, but they are able to deal a substantial amount of damage. So, when we're looking at energy shield deflection, what's the best way to utilize it? Stay the heck back. Stay back. You see a guy within 5 squares, you running shot backward. And you better have running shot or hypersonic speed, but preferably running shot. Just get the heck back. Force Blast does have its advantages as well, but if that figure has charge, they're not going anywhere. So that's one huge thing with energy shield deflection that you need to keep in mind. The next thing is get on hindering terrain. You might as well make your ranged attacks against you require 3 more than just 2. At least that way the entire time you're capped out at your defense modifications. The next thing that you really want to consider is range. You prefer really to have a 8 or higher range, but since the game has rescaled pretty much range values, you're looking good at a 7. A 6 is okay. Below a 6, you're in the danger zone. And I don't mean the fun singing the song danger zone, but you're literally in the danger zone. The next thing that you really want to consider when you use energy shield deflection is trying to attack characters from various angles so you can limit your line of fire drawn to you. Since you're pretty much are going to have energy shield deflection on a range piece, you mainly want them to have a limited range of fire so that your opponent is forced to readjust themselves to you, then you to your opponent. Alright, so how do we pick a good energy shield deflection piece? Well, first off, I have to say it, they have to have running shot or hypersonic speed because you're going to need to reposition. And dealing damage is how you stay alive. Okay? Unlike combat reflexes, which is sort of designed to be in the midst of things, energy shield deflection is the complete opposite. You are supposed to be the heck back. You're not in the firefight. You're part of the firefight, but you have a sniper rifle. That figure has a sniper rifle and, is able to check the wind and knowing which way to shoot. That's what type of combatant they are. Okay, distance is your friend. Now, you can combine energy shield deflection really with probability control. That by far is one of the strongest powers that energy shield deflection characters can have. It allows them to, pretty much to reshoot if they miss, but also presents them a defensive option in which if your opponent does get past your high defense, they do have to roll again. So that's the big things to consider. Now, how we're going to train with energy shield deflection is quite simple. We are going to try to pick a map with a lot of Henry terrain, and then we're going to build a opposing team that is going to try to gain the distance, to close the gap distance between the two teams. And it's our goal to keep that energy shield deflection character on top click throughout the whole game. That's pretty much the challenge. You might say, well, Dark Logos, that's a little unfair because in the game of hero clicks, you know, you take massive losses or you take lots of damage and you have to sacrifice pieces. Yeah, but this time to win the game, you need to keep that energy shield deflection character untouched, unblemished, in pristine fashion. And you might think it's a little bit torturous or unrealistic. But trust me, if you learn how to do this, you're going to thank me because you're going to be a lot more mindful of your positioning. And really, when it comes to energy shield deflection, positioning is 60 to 70% of the game for that piece. The other 30% is just existing. Okay? So go do that. Go play that game. And keep going until you're able to successfully keep that energy shield deflection character alive the entire game without being touched. Write down, you know, what allowed you to do that or what caused you to lose. And I will meet you in the next episode.